The Legislature Today is on the air from our flagship affiliate, the voice of the Northern Plains, 550 Cape Fire, and affiliates Talk Radio AM 1100 The Flag Fargo and Talk Radio 1090 The Flag in the Bakken. We're broadcasting live from the historic Peacock Alley American Grill and Bar in downtown Bismarck, the National Cattlemen's Association Beef Innovator of the Year. You're about to find out what's happening in the North Dakota legislative session. Your host of the Legislature Today is Dale Wetzel, managing editor of Great Plains News and the Great Plains Examiner. If you have questions or comments or to watch the show, go to GreatPlainsNews.com. GreatPlainsNews.com. The Legislature Today is brought to you by the North Dakota Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties, the Credit Union Association of the Dakota, the University of Mary, the North Dakota Corn, Soybean and Grain Growers Association, and the North Dakota Ethanol Council, the Northwest Landowners Association, Touchstone Energy Cooperative, North Dakota Rural Electric Cooperatives Association, and members Minn Kota Power and Great River Energy, the North Dakota chapter of Concerned Women for America, the Expressway Inn and Suites, where a good night's rest costs less, and the Peacock Alley. It's time to get started. Another hour of the Legislature Today is on the air.
This is Dale Wetzel. This is the Legislature Today radio program. We're coming to you from the Peacock Alley American Bar and Grill in downtown Bismarck, North Dakota. We have a rather special promotion going on at the Peacock Alley this evening, and we're going to be talking to a gentleman about that in a moment. In our first half hour, we're going to be speaking to two public service commissioners, Randy Chrisman, who is a former Assistant Senate Republican Majority Leader, who is, I think, not envying the fact that he's not in the legislature anymore, given the difficulty they're having closing down the session. We also have Julie Fedorchik, who is a recent appointee to the Public Service Commission, a former aide to Governor John Hoeven, who started her career in North Dakota state government as a press secretary, the press secretary, to former Governor Ed Schaefer. I also have with us Mr. Gary Emeneth, who is a co-host. I'm our co-host and a Bismarck businessman, and I've promised not to talk about the clothes he's wearing, so I won't do that.
It's the same shirt I wear every night, so last night I did wear a pink one, so we'll change it up.
And what the special event that we're going to be speaking about briefly here is an event held by the Summit Brewing Company. It's called Cask Beer Night. If you come to the Peacock Alley American Bar and Grill in downtown Bismarck, North Dakota right now, you can purchase a glass of Summit beer for $4.75, and you get to keep the glass, and I'm here to tell you it's an attractive piece of glassware. I think you would pay more than $4.75 for it at the store without any liquid in it whatsoever. The gentleman that we have to speak with us about this promotion, his name is Vince Hannison. He's the Upper Midwest Market Manager for Summit Brewing Company. I might add that Summit Brewing Company's owner is a native of Wahpeton, North Dakota. And Mr. Hannison's going to tell us about him and going to tell us about this promotion that's going on. Mr. Hannison, what is this going on here tonight?
Well, hello, everybody. This is what we call cask-conditioned beer, where we take a regular beer and we put it into a vessel called a firkin. It's a 10.8 gallon vessel, and they dry hop it, and then they put yeast in there, and all the beer is called alive. All the fermentation, everything happens inside that vessel. And about 5 weeks later, we serve it to the public, and it's a delicious way to drink beer, the way they drank beer 300 years ago.
How is it different from drinking beer out of a normal bottle of Summit beer?
Well, it's not going to be as carbonated, not going to be as filling, and we actually take the main ingredients, and then we add a little to it. So this one actually is infused with lemon and orange peel, which makes it very unique, because you have a very hoppy beer, and its finish is very citrusy.
Tell us about the owner of Summit Brewing Company, sir.
Mark Stutrud, born and raised in Wahpeton, North Dakota, graduated from UND. He was a social worker with a background in chemical dependency, but an avid home brewer. And his first beer that he used to brew or home brew was EPA. And his friends in St. Paul said, you really have a knack for this. You should really sell it to the public. So in 1986, it all began.
And where is Summit beer distributed, sir?
It's out of St. Paul, Minnesota, but I represent some. We're in 17 states right now.
And what kind of beers do you have?
We have an extra pale ale, which is 70% of our sales is extra pale ale. We have our Saga IPA, which is a West Coast IPA, a Horizon Red Ale. We have a British style IPA. We have a variety of seasonal beers, which is a Maibach Summer Ale, which will be our next, that comes out next. It will be in a couple weeks. Oktoberfest and a Winter Ale. We have a fantastic oatmeal stout that you can get on draft, and a lot of delicious beers.
And this Firkin beer, is it served at room temperature, or is it chilled? Or
it should be served about 45 degrees is what it comes down to. It starts out a little colder in the beginning, and it ends up a little warmer than it should. But by that time, everybody's having a good time. So
okay. And what is the purpose of coming here tonight? You're selling beer and giving away glasses and hoping that people drink more Summit beer?
Add visibility to the brand, absolutely.
How often do you do something like this in North Dakota?
This is my second one this month. I have one planned, actually second one since April. I have another one planned in Fargo. Same thing. So
you can say we're at in Fargo.
JL Beers in Fargo. So right. Fargo, North Dakota.
All right. Outstanding. Well, sir, and how long is this event going to last for listeners who might be thinking about stopping by?
Until the keg's gone, so come on out.
Until the keg's gone? How long does the keg usually last?
Well, we have probably another hour.
Okay.
Hour and a half.
Okay.
Well, the great thing, Dale, about this glass they're giving away on the backside is Peacock Alley celebrating 80 years. So it's kind of a commemorative glass celebrating Peacock's 80 years in business along with the Summit logo. So,
absolutely.
So come on down and
well, I hope I can buy a glass if I can't buy the beer.
I already swiped a couple for it. Well, I got a couple down there for you, Dale.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I didn't swipe them. They gave them to me.
You stole them. We have been speaking to Vince Hannison, the Upper Midwest Market Manager for Summit Brewing Company. We have Cask Beer Night where you can drink real ale, real beer out of a firkin and pay $4.75 and get a glass of beer and keep the glass. And it is an attractive glass. If Gary hadn't swiped one for me, I might have tried to do that myself. Thank you for your time, Mr. Hannison.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
We're going to be speaking now to Julie Fedorchik, who is the one of the where there's 3 public service commissioners, and we have the honor of having 2 of them on the air right now. One is Julie Fedorchik. She is a Republican who was appointed last year to the Public Service Commission by Governor Jack Dalrymple. And we also have Randy Crispin. He is a former Republican Assistant Senate Majority Leader, a former senator from Hazen, North Dakota. He was elected to the Public Service Commission last year, and they are both earning their spurs on the Public Service Commission, which regulates utilities. It regulates grain elevators, reclaimed coal-mined land, coal mining, auctioneers. They have a broad portfolio of things. And one of the subjects we wanted to discuss with Ms. Fedorchik and Mr. Crispin tonight is the budget that the legislature has approved for the agency. And there's some interesting items in that budget. One of them is money set aside for a railroad rate complaint case. And I would like to discuss what that means. Randy, what is the railroad rate complaint case? As I understand it, it's been going on for a bit. And can you tell us the progress of it and why it's worthwhile to spend almost $1 million on it over the next 2 years?
It has, Dale, and this is an old issue. It's probably it goes back to maybe 2003 or give or take a session. And there used to be a lot of complaints coming in from elevators and from ag producers about railroad rates. And the suggestion was that it sometimes cost more to ship less miles than it did to ship more miles, depending on where you're at, that type of thing. And they persuaded the Public Service Commission at that time and the legislature that it was perhaps time to pursue a rate case, which would have to go through the National Transportation Board. and the Public Service Commission would be the entity that would bring that case forward, and it was going to cost a lot of money. And what we did was set aside $900,000 back then, if it was necessary, and it would come from a beginning farmer revolving loan fund over at the Bank of North Dakota. And they felt at the time that they weren't going to use all the money in that fund during that biennium. And so that was an appropriate place to get it. If you recall back then, the state didn't have any money to spend on projects like this. Well, the money got set aside for that, and things improved in the shipping industry, and they never had to bring the case. And so the PSC actually never withdrew the money from the bank back then. And every session since then, we have left that money there just as an insurance policy, so that if there is a rail rate case that the commission feels should be brought, they have a place from which to get the money.
Is it kind of like the sword poised over the neck of the railroad or something? Or
I don't like to refer to it as a sword. I'll refer to it as the insurance policy. You can refer to it as a sword. But the fact is there hasn't been a problem since. The money's never been withdrawn, and I don't expect we're going to use it this time either. And typically I think we get about 3/4 of the way through a 2-year biennium, and the bank kind of checks to see if it looks like we're going to need it, and they never have, and so they continue to make the loans to the farmers, and it's just worked very well over the years.
How would you describe the state of railroad grain shipping in North Dakota these days? I mean, do you think, is there enough cars, or do you get many complaints from grain elevators? What's the situation?
Well, we haven't since we've been here. At least I haven't. But it's not really that season. The complaints as you come in at harvest time and that sort of thing. I think it has improved a lot from what it was 15 or 20 years ago. But I do worry that with the rail industry getting so involved with the oil industry, that maybe they're going to start forgetting the farmers, and we can't afford to have that happen.
Yeah, I think that the test for us will be this fall. We haven't seen this yet, gone through a season where the rail cars are in high demand for the producers. And I think we've heard some that are concerned about that all the rail cars are going for oil transportation, and we'll have to see how it all works out this fall.
I never thought I'd ask this question, but have oil producers complained to you about a shortage of cars?
I have not heard that.
No.
I think that there's a real mix in terms of the use of the pipelines and the rail. And the rail responded really quickly, and I've even heard that the pipelines are not being used to their maximum potential because there's so much use of the rail. And so we'll see how that all sifts out over time, if they continue to go the rail option, or if there's more pipeline usage down the road as the pipelines get more in place.
As you both know, one of the Commission's main duties is the regulation of pipeline placement. How is there as much demand to build pipelines now as there was when you started? And how do you see that demand increasing, or maybe even decreasing, because of the factors you mentioned about the increased use of railroad shipping?
We have several big projects that are underway that we're monitoring in the construction phase. And then I just last week met with Enbridge Company, and they have a very large cross-state, multiple-state project that they'll be looking at siting here in the next year or so. And so that'll be an interstate pipeline taking our crude across country over to Minnesota, and then down into markets south from there and east. And so I think that the demand is steady. I don't have a huge history to compare it to from previous years yet, but right now it feels very steady, and I don't think it's showing any signs of letting up.
I think the demand is still there. The willingness on the part of the investors are still there. Probably one of the biggest troubles is the process of getting the environmental approvals and the easements from the landowners.
There's also something in your budget, aside from the railroad rate complaint money, there's something for a reclamation and grain licensing. Can you talk about what the reason for that is? We're talking about another $900,000.
Yeah, is a pool of money that this is not having to do with the Bank of North Dakota revolving loan fund for
Correct.
farmers.
Right.
This is a separate thing. This is general fund money that's being set aside. Again, we hope that we don't use much of it, but we are kind of in a constant state of litigation. There are grain elevators that for a variety of reasons end up becoming insolvent, and we need to represent those producers who are left holding the bag when that happens, and it costs a lot of money. Lawsuits and litigation has just become increasingly expensive. And secondly, with coal mine reclamation, there just seems to be ongoing lawsuits. We're in a couple of them that have been going on for a long time. I expect there'll be more coming. And this is money just set aside because our lawyers at the Public Service Commission, we have two attorneys that work for us, and they're not really there to be litigators full time. They're more administrative type lawyers and don't have the time and the resources to be fighting major federal lawsuits and that sort of thing. And so we have to contract out for these services. But the important thing with this money is we are not going to let our sovereignty be bought over the course of someone just filing a lawsuit and us not having the resources to fight it. The legislature has sent a strong signal that the resources are there. We're going to defend our state sovereignty, and we're going on the coal reclamation part of it, and we're going to defend those farmers in the cases of elevator insolvency and make sure that the people are taken care of.
This was a brainchild of Randy, actually. He sort of led the charge on this effort, and sort of looking at the revolving or the rail rate complaint case loan fund or legal fund that existed, and kind of taking the same approach, saying we're serious about this. We intend to defend our rights to regulate coal and coal reclamation, and we're going to have the money behind us to do that, in hopes that maybe we won't have to, but if anybody's out there looking to see where would be a good place to take a lawsuit to try to shut down coal or to create problems for coal, maybe they'll look someplace else besides North Dakota.
What do you think are the most significant elements of your budget besides what we've talked about already?
I think that one of them is they added a position for a gas pipeline safety inspector.
Yep.
And that is going to be huge. We have one. There's an organization, Julie probably knows what the letters even stand for. It's PHMSA. It's a federal acronym, and I don't even know what it stands for.
I think it's Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration.
There you
All
go.
right.
Sounds right to me.
Outstanding.
And but there are standards and training that it takes to be a pipeline safety inspector. We have, as you talked about earlier, more and more pipe in North Dakota. We need to make sure it's safe and that they're running their pipeline systems appropriately. And we have one pipeline safety inspector, and he's not even fully trained through the processes that they require. And so we're adding another one, and that's going to be important. And we're also adding a public utility analyst. Maybe Julie can add a little on that.
Sure. In the public utility analyst area, they're the people that help with the siting of projects. Like we mentioned, the increased pipeline projects, all the wind farm projects that there's new applications now this year because of the extension of the federal production tax credit, and the siting of any new electric generation facilities. All of these siting projects are handled by our public utilities division, and the public utilities analysts serve that function. And so they are in charge of going through these huge, very extensive applications, making sure that the companies have all the environmental materials in, and have all the cultural studies completed, and then really being our staff to help us make sure we have the information we need to evaluate these applications and make sure that the companies are following the rules, asking all the right questions, and that sort of thing. So these folks, our workload has increased pretty steadily over the last probably 5 years, and we have again this year looking like we're going to have a pretty heavy workload. So having staff, being staffed up to be able to go through the processes, making sure that we're covering all the bases, the consumers are protected, the state is protected, that we're making sure all the laws are covered so that this build out of infrastructure that we need in the state to support this industry is done effectively, reasonably, efficiently and that we do it as quickly as possible as well.
One of the bills that made my eyes pop a little bit that deals with your agency is that there's a substantial increase in the maximum daily fine for pipeline violations. I think it goes up from $10,000 per day to $200,000 per day, and the maximum penalty for a single incident goes up from $500,000 to $2 million. Why did you think that was necessary?
That was in response to federal requirements. So PHMSA is the agency that we run our pipeline safety program on their behalf, and this is something that they recommend and so really require. And we were being dinged in terms of our reimbursement from them for not having those in place. And it's really a deterrent. It gives the commission or PHMSA, I'm not sure who would actually levy those fines, but it allows them that level of a fine for violations just as a deterrent. And also, if there's a real serious violation that causes injury or extensive damage, you can try to repay people for the damages and losses. So that was really in kind of keeping in line with the federal guidelines and requirements for those sorts of violations.
There was there's a study in your budget bill about whether to build a new metrology lab. Can you tell me what a metrology lab is, please?
Go ahead, Randy.
A metrology lab, and we used to have one right on the north side of the Capitol, is really the people who test measuring devices, whether it's gas pump devices, small scales like you see at the grocery store or something like that, all the way up to the big equipment that's truck mounted where they go and test scales at elevators and livestock sales rings and places like that. And our metrology lab did not meet federal standards anymore years ago, and we were kind of grandfathered in, but it was really causing a lot of problems because it didn't meet the standards. People didn't like coming here because of all the traffic activity being in the heart of Bismarck and on the Capitol grounds. And a decision was made by the legislature that I didn't really like at the time to shut it down, and people could go either to Sioux Falls or to Minnesota. And I think there's a place in Montana that has a metrology lab as well, and get that equipment tested. Well, years have gone by. Now we have a lot more activity here with our booming economy. We're hearing more and more from scale testing companies and scale installation companies that they'd like a metrology lab. The legislature has responded by looking into it. It would be very expensive to build. It's very fussy. Detailed equipment can't be anywhere near a railroad or a major highway, for example. Very fussy to build. But they're going to look into the possibility of setting up a new North Dakota metrology lab.
Julie, do you think that one is necessary?
Metrology lab?
A metrology lab, yeah.
You know, I wouldn't have thought so, but we did hear from some folks who actually came and testified at our hearing on this issue about the need and that, we're growing our state. We're having more and more scales and more users. So why are we sending all these people out of state, these service companies? So I think it's worth looking into.
We've been speaking to Julie Fedorchik, whose voice you just heard. She is one of the two new members of the North Dakota Public Service Commission. The commission has 3 members in all. The chairman is Brian Kalk, who could not be with us tonight, or maybe we could have had a little impromptu commission meeting. We also have had with us Randy Crispin, a newly elected member of the Public Service Commission and a former Assistant Republican Senate Majority Leader in the North Dakota Legislature. Randy, do you miss it?
Oh, I miss it a lot. Every day I see my friends down there, and I just love to roll up my sleeves and get in the action.
Well, this has been Dale. This is Dale Wetzel. This is the Legislature Today, and we will be back in a moment.
How long will their wanting go unanswered? How long will they silently suffer? Please help a person in need download iHeartRadio to their smartphone or tablet. Allow them the joy of listening to 1500 live